All right, welcome to another video. In this video, we'll be looking at the fifth topic of the JAMB syllabus, which is vertebrates. So we would also consult our textbook, Explicit Biology, which is what we're using as the template for this lecture. So we need to understand for this topic that we'll consider vertebrates based on the evolution, from the evolutionary trend. And in that case, we are going to begin with fishes and then go to amphibians, then to reptiles, to herbs or birds, and then to mammals. Generally, vertebrates are animals with vertebral column or backbone, and they have internal skeleton. They also have what is called bilateral symmetry. They have their brain in the cranium. They have paired fore and hind limbs. They have well-developed sense organs, and they have what is called a closed circulatory system. Now, however, if you consider the evolutionary trend, you would agree that the complexity of these organisms increases as you move down the evolutionary line or up the evolutionary line, as the case may be. That as you move from fishes to mammals, their order of complexity increases. So, for example, if we consider, I mentioned the concept of bilateral symmetry, which is one of the characteristics of vertebrates. That reminds me about talking about symmetry. I should have mentioned that when we discuss invertebrates. So, the concept of symmetry, let me explain using this slide. So, when you have an organism and you can, if you divide it into across a plane, if you get equal halves, that you have the left side and the right side, then that organism is said to be bilaterally symmetrical, and you can only achieve this in one plane. For example, if you look at this structure of the shrimp, if I divide it in this plane from anterior to posterior, that is when I can have this shrimp in two halves. I cannot get this same division in any other plane. So that is called bilateral symmetry. And for some organisms, they are radially symmetrical. In that case, like you have here for the anemone, you can get equal halves in any plane you choose to divide it. So such organisms are radially symmetrical, and there are some organisms that are actually called asymmetrical. So there is no how you are going to divide, there is no plane that you are going to divide this organism that you will get two equal sides, the left and the right. So these for these organisms, they are asymmetrical. Let's go back to mammals. I mean, to discussing vertebrates. So, another key concept I think is very important before we move on is to talk about the concept of temperature, because we are going to come across this. There is something called homeothermic versus poikilothermic. So for organisms that are homeothermic, their body temperature is strictly regulated, and that includes mammals and birds. While for some other organisms, their body temperatures will fluctuate according to the dictate of the environment. And for such organisms, they are called poikilothermic. Now, there is a general description or classification for these vertebrates and how they can be and unique characteristics. I'll put it that way. If you consider the fishes, their entire body is covered with scales. For amphibians, their body is soft. They have moist skin because they use the skin to also carry out respiration. For reptiles, they have dry, scaly skin. And for birds, their entire body is covered with feathers. And for the mammals, they have their body covered with fur or the skin. Then if you consider movement, their movement is also different. For the fishes, they make use of their fins, and that fin is also used for balancing. For the amphibians, they make use of their forelimbs, and they have web feet, which can also be used for swimming. And for the reptiles, they have 4 legs, apart from the snakes. And for birds, they have 4 limbs, which is divided into 2 wings and then 2 legs. And for mammals, they have 4 limbs as well. Then in terms of reproduction, fishes usually reproduce by producing jelly-covered eggs in water. And usually their process of fertilization is external. What that simply means is that the female and the male the female releases egg into water, and the male also releases sperm into water. And fertilization happens outside. Then the animals produces egg when they're fertilized. For the amphibians, they produce jelly-covered eggs in water as well. In some cases, usually amphibians produce their fertilization is internal. And for reptiles also, they produce eggs that is rubbery and waterproof shell. And fertilization is also internal in this case. Then for birds, they lay eggs with hard shells, and fertilization is internal as well. Then for mammals, they produce their young ones alive. Now, talking about reproduction, I will also introduce you to another concept. And this concept is called oviparity, ovoviviparity, and viviparity. So what does that mean? First and foremost, oviparity is the lowest. This is the at the lowest level. Now, oviparity is a trait of laying eggs. Now, why viviparity, which is the advanced level, is when organisms give birth to their young ones alive. This happens in mammals. Then in between, you now see in between oviparity and viviparity, you have another concept called ovoviviparity. And that is when laying of eggs and keeping them inside the mother's body till they are hatched. So in this case of ovoviviparity, the eggs are laid inside the body of the female organism, and then nourishment is derived from the egg yolk. So if you consider this table, you see further explanation on this concept of ovoviviparity. But what is important is to understand the definitions of these key terms. Okay, then we go back to our table, talking about the sense organs. So for fishes, they have a lateral line, which is used to detect vibration, in addition to the eyes, and of course they do not have external ear. They do not have ears at all. And we have, for amphibians, their sense organ is the eyes and the ears. For reptiles, the eyes and the ears. The birds, eyes and ears as well. And then for mammals, they make use of their eyes, ears. In this case, for mammals, their ears also have the external pinna. Then we talk about temperature regulation, which is, in this case, they could be defined as cold-blooded or warm-blooded. As a matter of fact, the term cold-bloodedness, yes, can be replaced with another term called poikilothermic. I think I mentioned that earlier. All right, so only birds and mammals are homeothermic. That means they have a very regulated body temperature. So in the JAMB syllabus, if we go back to explicit biology, in the JAMB syllabus, you are expected to be able to Explain using representative organism. For example, the tilapia fish. You should be able to draw and label the tilapia fish and be able to describe a few things about it. And that is found here in this book. Then if we go to amphibians, you should also be able to have a representative organism. So take note, for example, in the amphibians, representative organism would be the toad. Now you should be able to tell the labelings of this toad, where is the position of the poison gland, the position of the tympanic membrane, and many more. And also for the reptiles, you should also be able to describe a representative organism. For example, the lizard. You should be able to tell how the lizard adapts to the environment. You should be able to draw and label. And also for the birds, very importantly, you should be able to tell the structures of the feathers apart, the different types of feathers that you have in the birds. Basically, the contour feather is the most important feather. And other types of feathers are the semi-plume, the down feather, the brittle, and the filiplume. Now, the structure and labeling of the egg, of course, that is usually a very common question in the JAMB exam. So if you draw the egg, you should be able to tell where the albumen is, the germinal disc, which is located at the center, the egg space, and the shell. You should also be able to tell where the yolk is found and what is holding the yolk in position, the chalaza. That's the internal structure of the egg. And finally, for representative mammals, you should be able to draw and label the structure of the rats. So on this note, we'll consider a few questions. A question on bony fish. So fishes are cold-blooded because their body temperature is, of course, we mentioned the concept of poikilothermic, when the body temperature depends heavily on the temperature of the environment. So here, fishes are cold-blooded because their body temperature is dependent on that of their surrounding. Let's consider a question on amphibians, yes. So the poison gland found in the toad produces a substance which does what? Which kills its predator, protects it against predator, keeps the body surface shiny and moist, blends it with the surrounding. Actually, it protects it against predator. That's the essence of the poison gland. It doesn't kill the predator. All right. So there are a couple of questions you can actually lay your hands on. Question under lizard, for example, under reptiles. Some of the features of an animal are scales, teeth, nails, and backbone. The animal is likely to be what? Okay, possession of scales. Scales will mean it's either fish or reptiles, right? Now, what is there fish in this option? No. So now we're left with reptiles. So that cancels option A, that cancels option B, that cancels option E, that cancels option D, and the right option will become C, which is lizard. So now if you look at the structure of the internal structure of the egg, for example, the structure that holds the yolk in position is labeled, okay, that's the chalaza, and that would be probably the one here. That's Roman figure 3, option D. So you can play around with a couple of questions Now this, okay, let's look at this question. This table, I think this is 2000 and this is 2002. The correct evolutionary sequence of the organism is represented thus. Now, if you look at 1 here, this is cat, I think. 2 is amphibian. 3 is bird. And 4 is fishes. Now, the evolutionary trend, where is it starting from? That means from the least to the most advanced. The least is 2, that's here. No, sorry, the least is 4, that's fishes. So 4 is the first one, followed by amphibians, and that is Roman figure 2, followed by birds, that's Roman figure 3, followed by mammals, cats, Roman figure 1, and the right answer here would be option D. So on that note, we would draw the curtain here, and in the next video we will move on to talk about the next topic, which is internal structure of organisms. So if you have any question, leave a comment for me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.